Hello everyone and welcome to the Open Series in Providence. I'm Glenn Jones. I'm joined in the booth by Matt Costa. Matt, you said that you kind of entered into a little bit of a pact with Reed that you guys would play cool decks this weekend.
Yeah.
So he brought Prime Speaker Bant with some Prophet of Crufix to the table. You brought Jund.
Yeah, sadly I brought Jund, but I don't think those words have the same connotation that they used
especially
to.
for you. You're not really known for playing this particular combination of colors.
No.
I actually can't recall the last time I saw you play anything even a little bit close. Rug Delver is the closest that it comes. It shares green and red.
Yeah.
And that's about it. The deck is obviously completely different.
I can't remember the last time I put a basic forest into play. It feels kind of weird, but it's been doing well so far.
And you're doing it to cast Sylvan Caryatid, no less. And that's kind of the glue that holds your whole deck together, actually. You're playing a Jund deck, you're using the Sylvan Caryatid a lot like people use Farseek, and in return, you gain access to pretty much the best of everything. I guess we'll start with your removal. You've got Hero's Downfall, Abrupt Decay, Museum Orders, Anger of the Gods. You can pretty much handle anything these aggro decks are throwing at you.
Yeah, I think that Abrupt Decay and Hero's Downfall are a really important package in this format. They're where I started with this deck. I said,
Sure.
I want to play 4 of each of those. How do I build my deck around them? And Jund is where I landed.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, and I really like the Anger of the Gods as an inclusion because that Boros deck is really picking up in popularity. It's done well in a couple opens already, and that card can be really problematic for them. They're not ready to start holding open Boros Charm on turn 3 most of the time.
Yeah.
So I like that. Moving up, you've got the best discard in the format, Thoughtseize and Rakdos Return. Rakdos Return kind of fell out of favor. I don't really know why. I think that it's mostly because we had these like devotion and aggressive decks that actually get onto the board before you can Rakdos Return people, but it's still one of the more powerful cards in Standard.
Yeah, I actually think Return is deceptively good against a lot of the devotion decks as long as you're capable of interacting with them early. As I've played a bunch of mono blue, I've played a bunch of mono black, and I feel like all the games come down to you set up and then you have your best 2 or 3 cards left in your hand, and then you just wait for those to win the game for you. And so I think that Return is actually, as long as I can find a way to get there and not die in the early game, I think it's a really powerful way to break up the synergies of those decks.
You're basically just trying to hit a favorable or neutral board state and then just slam them with a Return so that you're going to win eventually.
Yeah.
Just raw cards.
And naturally it's an important part of the control matchup. Using Thoughtseize and Eye of Duress in the sideboard as well to force through a big Rakdos Return is usually how it in those games.
Yeah, there are not a lot of good counterspells anymore, and especially decks that have Sylvan Caryatid, a lot of people don't want to rely on Syncopate against those decks because it's much harder to keep up. So you've also got access to Read the Bones, a card a lot of people thought would be awesome when it first came out, and it's kind of been a little panned since then. People are still playing Divination because the 2 life matters so much, especially in all of these blue control decks. You obviously aren't playing blue, so you're playing Read the Bones. How is it actually playing out for you?
It's really good. I think it's not a card I initially wanted to include, and actually my discussion with Reed the other night is he said to me basically you have to play Read the Bones, and it's been great for me so far. It's just the life loss is concerning, and that's the reason why I was hesitant on it. But certainly, resolving a Read the Bones against any of the other mid-range decks is just game over for the most part. It's way better than Divination could be in those late games as long as your life total isn't being pressured.
And you do have a little bit of a way to recoup some life total with Scavenging Ooze, one of the best cards in Magic right now, in multiple formats in fact. So no real shock to see it here in your green deck. You've also got Polukranos, the go-to green fatty of choice these days. That guy has really taken off. But supplementing him, you have Reaper of the Wilds, a card that a lot of people actually, didn't give a lot of props. I know JBL and BBD wound up playing it at Pro Tour Dragons because they were pretty happy with their junk deck. They played Reaper of the Wilds. So what drew you to the Reaper?
Well, first of all, Reaper of the Wilds is a bad card. I'm not going to give it any more than that. But I think it is exactly the right size and exactly the right colors for the format. It doesn't die to Doomblade, it doesn't die to Ultimate Price, it doesn't die to Museum Mortars. Later in the game you can protect it from Hero's Downfall or from Detention Sphere. And one of the problems I had in trying to build decks like this was I'm playing 25 land, I don't have access to a card like Kessig Wolfrun anymore to sort of give me value when I flood out, and so the Scry ability in a lot of those long games is surprisingly relevant to dig you to your next threat, to dig you to more gas. And so it's been really good despite the fact that I don't think it's a great card on the surface, at least.
Well, it does pull its weight in that regard, and in the late game, as you said, it's one of the easier cards to just protect, and as long as they don't play something better, and there aren't a lot of things better, there are a few though. Pulukro stands out as head and shoulders like, that's going to be
though Reaper wins that fight heads up.
He at least trades with everybody, right? That's the worst case scenario for him. So then you've also got, last but not least, Stormbreath Dragon. Again, one of just the best creatures in Standard. Very aggressive. You've got a little bit of extra mana to help you pull off the monsters, but mostly just the durable Hasted Flyer seems to be where you're at.
Yeah, to an extent, Dragon is a concession to a lot of the control decks, though I've been surprised at how good he is against the Doomblade decks. These mono black decks in particular, they pay a lot of life. They can rarely afford to leave mana up on your turn.
Sure.
So I think that, haste comes and goes, but I think haste is where you want to be right now.
Yeah, between Thoughtseize and Underworld connections, it's obviously, the black decks basically have a 15 life total at best in any given game. And also, a lot of them are getting pretty greedy and playing all these temples. That makes it really tricky for you to be able to hold open removal on specific turns. So, yeah, I really like the Stormbreath Dragon, but I don't think that's any shock. It's like one of the best creatures in the format. So, you've already gotten a couple rounds in with the deck. Is there anything you already feel like you might have changed, or are you in general pretty happy with the mold?
I'm feeling pretty good about the deck right now. I really like it against the Devotion decks, but I also like the fact that I'm not a Devotion deck, meaning that a couple removal spells can't break up synergies because all my cards are just really powerful. And the way the format is headed right now is there's a lot of people playing lots of spot removal to break up synergies, so I felt that moving away from synergies and moving towards just powerful cards was a good way to attack it.
That's exactly the game you're playing. You obviously can play that attrition game against a lot of people, but as you said, your individual cards are each capable of just winning a game on their own given enough time. All right, well, Matt, thank you for joining me. Good luck.
Thank you.